Well, hello everyone. Merideth Nagel here again to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is the title insurance commitment. Now, one of the reasons this is my favorite subject is this is an often overlooked part of your practice as a realtor, understanding the title commitment and passing it on to your customers. It's often overlooked and super important. So I like to give you guys tips that are going to allow you to distinguish yourself as a thought leader in your profession, and understanding the title commitment and how important it is and what it means is one of those ways that you can distinguish yourself. So without further ado, the exciting title commitment. So a title commitment is actually much like a title insurance binder that many of you guys are familiar with. So for example, if you go on the internet or the telephone and secure title insurance, car insurance, they will send you a binder, and it basically is their promise to insure you when you pay for your policy and then send you the policy. That's a lot like what the title commitment is. It is a promise by the title agent to issue title insurance to the buyer under the terms and conditions that are included in that title commitment. Now, most of you guys are relying upon the standard contract, which says that those title commitments do not have to be produced until 5 days prior to closing. The problem with that is if there is an issue that is raised in your title commitment, if there's a probate that needs to happen, corrective deeds that need to be obtained, if you don't see that title commitment any sooner than 5 days before closing, you're going to have a problem, as it is unlikely you can get issues like of that resolved in that short amount of time. So the first thing I would recommend to you guys as part of understanding the importance of the title commitment is understanding how important it is you get it sooner rather than later. So you have the ability in your standard contract to fill in the blank for a number of days for you to get that title commitment after the effective date of the contract. I would suggest 10 days. That gives enough time for the title agent to order the search and get it back to you. Now, not only should you ask for them in a reasonable amount of time, but you need to make sure you actually get them. Too often I'm finding that realtors that I work with when closing at other companies, they're not seeing the title commitment until they sit down to the closing table. Again, that's too late for you to review the commitment, make sure that you and your customer understand it, understand what they're getting, and solve problems if there's problems to be solved. Remember that a title insurance company, and I'm not speaking ill of title insurance companies, I own one. A title insurance company's job is to sell title insurance. It's not their job to represent the seller or the buyer or you. So with that in mind, it's important that you understand each section of the title commitment, get it and get it to your buyer. It's your responsibility to make sure that your buyer gets that commitment and understand it. So when you look at your title commitment, the first thing you're going to see is the first page, which we call Schedule A. You're going to look on that schedule and make sure that they have the right contract amount, because that's the amount of title insurance that you're going to be getting for your buyer, that they have the right loan amount, because that's the amount of insurance that your buyer's lender is going to get, and that the people in title shown on that Schedule A are actually the people that you're under contract with. Sometimes that first page of the Schedule A is the first place that you realize that you're under contract with John Smith. And in fact, John Smith owns the property along with Jane, and Jane never signed your contract, so obviously you have a problem. So take a look at that Schedule A, make sure that the sales price, the loan amount, and the seller information is correct. Next, you're going to turn to Schedule B, which has two parts. Schedule B1 are the requirements. Those are exactly what they sound like. Those are all the steps the title company must take in order to issue that title insurance policy. Those are the requirements. That's why they're called that. Each one of those steps must be followed. Take a close look at the requirements section, because that's where you're going to find some problems pop up. That's where you might see for the first time that a probate is needed. That's where you might learn for the first time that there's a guardianship in place and that the court must approve the contract and the sale. So again, looking at those requirements early in the game helps you then start working with the title agent and a real estate attorney if you need one to start resolving these problems so that those requirements can be satisfied. The next section of the title insurance commitment is what we call in the industry the B2s, which just means it's requirement B, section 2, and those are exceptions to the policy. So just like when you buy health insurance or property insurance, there are exceptions to coverage, things that will not be covered if they actually happen. That's what the exceptions page of the title insurance policy is about. Those are things that if any issue arises as to those exceptions listed, then the coverage will not be in place for your buyer. Now, again, remember, title insurance companies sell title insurance. So it's very easy for them to throw an exception on and not provide coverage for an issue instead of clearing it up. So you're going to want to look at those exceptions, make sure that you understand each of them and that you agree to each of them. For example, some standard exceptions that we see that you should have no problem with are the existence of a homeowners association. That's never an issue. Taxes for the year upcoming, that's never an issue. But if you see things, for example, I recently saw a title commitment come into me. I was representing the buyer, and the title company wanted to put a mortgage from the prior owner on as an exception to the policy. The reason they were trying to do that is because they couldn't find the person who the money was owed to on the mortgage. They couldn't find them. So they thought the idea that they would have is just throw that mortgage on as an exception. Well, needless to say, you don't want your buyer taking title to a property when there's a mortgage hanging out there. So those exceptions are something you're going to want to review, and you're going to want to make sure that you understand them and you understand the impact of them. Now, sometimes when we're talking about title insurance and, realtors' eyes glaze over, and that's okay because your job as a realtor is to help your people sell and buy property. I get that. But the title insurance commitment is a piece that you need to be aware of, you need to pay attention to, you need to put it on your list of things that you need, just like, your inspections have to be in by a certain date. You're going to want to have on your list the title commitment coming in by a certain date and making sure that it's passed on to your buyer and that your buyer understands it. If you ever have any difficulty, if it's a complicated matter, real estate attorney can help you understand that. There's lots of good real estate attorneys in our area. Anybody they can walk you through those exceptions and help your buyer know whether they've got a problem or not. Or again, it's one of those things that should be on there, like the existence of a homeowners association. Recently, I had an occasion to be involved as an attorney in a file. I was hired by the buyer. At closing, they didn't get a title commitment, and nobody in the transaction really knew to ask for it and how important it was. After closing, they learned that their warranty deed into them had never been recorded, and so that the sellers are still in title, and they never got a title policy. And this is after turning over some $350,000 to this title agent. Now, I can't tell you how it all worked out, but I can tell you there was a big problem between the realtor and the customer because the realtor hadn't made sure that that title commitment was provided and provided to their customer. So this is one of those things where it's almost never going to be a real problem, but when it is a problem, it's a big problem. So again, to recap, you need your title commitment. The title commitment is the promise that title insurance will be issued if, again, the requirements of B1 are satisfied with the exceptions provided on B2. Make sure you get that commitment and get it early. I recommend that you ask that it be provided to you within 10 days after the effective date of the contract. And when you put that in your contracts, get that on your list of important dates, and make sure that you're staying on top of that title company to get you that commitment in time so that you can make sure that anything that needs to be handled will be handled, and hopefully your closing will go as smoothly as possible. As always, if you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, whether you're closing with my company or not, I'm very happy to answer your questions and help give you guidance. I can be reached at 352-394-6255. 7408. So once more, don't forget your title commitment. It's important. Get it, read it, and make sure that you and your buyer understand it. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next Homeschool for Realtors.